Car prices at dealerships across this country are insane right now, and everyone is paying artificially inflated rates for anything and everything in stock.
The Ranger was actually listed for $200,000.
What? And I, like so many of you, am sick of it. So who's to blame for this mess? Is it COVID? Is it corporate negligence? Is it the people at the dealerships themselves, or something entirely different? We're gonna find out.
Our videos might look easy to make, but that's because of all the preparation we do behind the scenes. Pre-production, scheduling, costume design. Let's go with the white one. Being prepared is how Donut makes great videos, and it's how today's awesome sponsor, ShipStation, helps you run a great business. Getting ready for your busy shipping season ahead of time is way easier than catching up when you're already behind. And with ShipStation, you have all your products in one place without limiting yourself to one store. You can integrate it into every platform, including Amazon, eBay, Shopify, anywhere you want to be.
We got a big word in today's script, automobile.
Mobile.
Beal.
Bile?
Just say car.
You got it. See, being ready is important. And when you're prepared with ShipStation, you get the same discounted shipping rates as Fortune 500 companies. 98% of companies that use ShipStation for 1 year become customers for life, so it's not a stretch to say you're gonna love it. Start now and get set up before the biggest shipping season of the year. Go to shipstation.com/donut today and sign up for a free 60-day trial. That's 2 months free.
My Mustang is getting old, and I've started looking for something to replace it. I think another Mustang would be pretty sweet. One with a manual, yeah. One with a big Coyote V8, yeah. A 2014 with low miles shouldn't be too much, right? They built 33,000 of those things that year alone, and it's almost a 10-year-old car. Yeah. So imagine my surprise when I find out that people want over $20,000 for a car with a little less than 100,000 miles. Man, this sucks. And that got me thinking, how do we even get to this point in the first place? Well, it starts with one of these. Well, not exactly one. This is a RAM. This is RAM for a computer. We didn't have a microchip on hand. I feel like we've all heard the phrase chip shortage more times than we ever need to. But in this digital age, computer chips control almost everything we deal with day to day. And that's especially true for cars. Automakers rely on two different types of chips for car production. There's super simple ones that operate things like power windows and seats. Then there's fancy ones for your car's more advanced functions like engine tuning and lane assist. The simple chips are typically easier to manufacture, and advanced chips take a lot more time. South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan are all leaders in building advanced semiconductors, with China's capability quickly gaining momentum. At the beginning of the COVID pandemic, automakers figured that car demand would fall, so they canceled their orders for these microchips, both simple and advanced. And to be honest, I would probably make the same decision. But this would be one of the first dominoes to fall. The semiconductor factories that didn't shut down, either due to productivity or employee health reasons, said, all right, Detroit, you can cancel your order, but we're still gonna make microchips, and shifted their focus to producing chips for consumer electronics, of which demand was skyrocketing. This is why it's still hard to get products like a PS5. I'm not mad that I still don't have one. A few months after, I missed the fucking Ace Combat 5 remaster. A few months after quarantine hit the US, automakers realized that people did want to buy cars. A ton of people, actually. And they put their chip orders back in. But making computer chips is a long and very precise process, and chip makers couldn't shift gears overnight and still had a pre-existing backlog to contend with. Most automakers operate by Toyota's just-in-time philosophy, where companies only keep parts on hand that they'll use immediately. So, car companies ended up making a bunch of incomplete cars that wound up sitting in parking lots waiting to get their precious microchips. And if you're thinking, Nolan, why not just build more semiconductor factories? Well, those take years to design and billions of dollars to construct. So until semiconductor manufacturing gets back to normal, the car market's gonna feel the burn. And it's not just microchips in short supply. Hard materials like steel, aluminum, copper, and soft goods like leather, foam, and petroleum are all essential components for your car that are in extremely high demand. And COVID's not just to blame here. It's also the weather. Texas's brutal cold snap last year shut down all 5 of the petrochemical plants that produce car foam here in the US, which hampered car seat production for new cars for a few months. And overseas, multiple floods have hit Thailand since 2020, tragically ending lives, as well as making it really hard for rubber farmers to produce. How many things can you think of that require rubber? The situation is not good. But when you combine that with global conflict, things get even worse. One component in your car that's just as important as a microchip is its wiring harness. Think of the wiring harness as your ride's spinal cord, okay? Connecting the sensors of its central nervous system. Without the harness, your car has no way of communicating with the various sensors and computers within it, preventing the car from functioning. And guess where a ton of wiring harnesses are built? Ukraine. When Russia invaded Ukraine, they disrupted one of the biggest wiring harness producers in the world. A recent report by Reuters found that 22 car companies rely on 38 plants across Ukraine to produce wiring harnesses. This caused Porsche to shut down production at their Leipzig plant in March, and both Volkswagen and BMW got hit hard too. Czech manufacturer Škoda was forced to delay the release of their Enyaq electric SUV by 8 months after Russia's invasion, and they decided that they would just produce their own harnesses in-house rather than wait for the situation to cool off. It took a lot of time and was probably not very cost efficient for them. So clearly, pandemics and conflicts have huge impacts on cars. But what about on the consumer level? Through most of the 20th century, car dealerships were locally owned small businesses, but times are different now. Every year, more and more independent dealers are bought up by large dealership conglomerates, shrinking the number of car suppliers. In other words, fewer companies are now responsible for selling a larger percentage of the new and used car market. So now not only is there a limit on the supply of cars being manufactured, but a slowly dwindling amount of places to buy them. And because of this, dealers know they can sell any car at any time, at any price. Last week, we reviewed the Toyota GR Corolla, a turbo all-wheel drive rally car that you can live with. It's great. I want one. For the lowest trim Core Edition, Toyota set the MSRP at $35,900, and I think that's honestly pretty reasonable for what you get. But the wind was taken right out of my sails as soon as I realized what was going to happen. Unscrupulous dealerships are going to get these cars, then mark them up by double, and likely have no problem getting what they want. I've tried telling myself that this won't happen, but I think I'm just being naive. The car companies aren't necessarily to blame here. Many automakers realize that huge markups are not good for their brand image. But when you buy a car, you aren't buying it from the manufacturer. You're buying it from the dealer who already bought it from the manufacturer, and some companies are trying to prevent markups. Hyundai recently sent an order to dealers discouraging them from gouging their customers. They're worried that once the market eventually equalizes, customers that paid a high price might think they got ripped off and go to a different manufacturer when they buy another car. However, Hyundai didn't really lay out a plan for what they would do to dealers who kept on gouging, so I guess we'll see what happens with that. The Ford Motor Company also has a problem with big markups. Ford CEO Jim Farley said on an earnings call, quote, "We have very good knowledge of who they are and their future allocation of product will be directly impacted." In other words, do big markups, get less cars. And that's important because Ford is experiencing some of the most rampant markups around the country. The Bronco, Maverick, Mustang Mach-E, and F-150 Lightning EV pickup are all highly sought after cars, but they're insanely overpriced at most dealers because they're in high demand. It's nice to hear the manufacturers stick up for the customers, but you gotta wonder if it's legit or just posturing for the public. Most of us don't work for these dealerships, so we don't know if the OEMs are following through with discipline. And if you feel like the dealers are being treated unfairly, don't. They're doing just fine. A report from Hague Partners found that the average gross profit on a new vehicle is $6,224, a 180% increase from 2019. A 180% increase! And publicly owned new car dealerships made an average profit of $7.1 million between March 2021 and March 2022. That's almost 2.5 times as much as they did in 2019. So clearly, corporate greed is a huge factor to the situation we're in now. But strap in, because this next part is where things get really shady. What I'm about to tell you is the real reason I can't find a 2014 Mustang GT with manual transmission, premium leather seats, shaker sound system, and Coyote V8 with less than 100,000 miles for under $20,000. Since new cars are so expensive right now, a large portion of used cars on the market are not trade-ins, but rather repossessed vehicles. Over the last couple of years, lots of people bought cars that they couldn't afford, and lots of banks gave out loans without verifying incomes. I have to give a big shout out to Andre Jick and Lucky Lopez, who made a very insightful video on how all this works if you really want to get into the financial side of things. People buying things they couldn't afford with money given from banks that didn't verify anything? Why does this sound so familiar? That's probably nothing. So you've got all these cars that have been repoed, but they don't just go back to the dealership. They go to wholesale auction houses, where dealerships go to bid on the inventory. Huge lots, reminiscent of the energy harvesting fields in the Matrix, are filled with repossessed cars waiting to hit the auction block. This is where dealers find a lot of their used cars. Now, the auction houses are very careful about how many cars they keep on hand, because if they sell too many at once, the increased supply could cause prices to actually go down. This means less profit for them, and they can't let that happen. In his video, Andre points out it's just like the diamond industry, a monolith company with a large supply on hand artificially influencing the market to control their own income. That's kind of shady. That sounds to me like the makings of a monopoly. Of course, Cox Automotive probably isn't the only company playing this game, but owning an asset like Kelley Blue Book, which is hugely influential, definitely helps put some weight on the scale in their favor. Is the supply of used cars really that low if they have to control how many cars go out in the market? Doesn't really sound like it to me. So the auction house tells the dealer how much they're going to pay for the car. Then Kelley Blue Book tells the bank how much money they can loan for that car. And then Auto Trader tells the customer how much they're going to pay for it. And here's the kicker. All three of those companies are owned by the same people. At the beginning of this video, I asked if anyone is to blame for this mess. Clearly, there's some man-made skullduggery going on here. People and corporations are taking advantage of the markets, and folks like you and me get caught in the middle. But the economy is also an extremely complicated beast that's also subject to the whims of nature itself. That's something we have to remind ourselves every now and then. My best advice if you want to buy a new car is to hold off if you can, and be patient, because even if the system isn't that great, prices will almost definitely go down eventually. If you want a cheap, cool, good used car, check out this video right here. If you want this hat, visit our store, leave a link down in the description. Big thank you to Andre and Lucky Lopez. Check out their channel, leave a link down in the description as well. If you want more Nolan content, follow me on all social media at Nolan J. Sykes. Be kind, I'll see you next time. And speaking of Ford, I just want to address my t-shirt right now. Mark Martin, the NASCAR driver, drove for Ford and apparently opened his own Ford dealership, which I had no knowledge of until right before we started recording. This was not intentional. However, if Mark Martin Ford is gouging their customers, I will rip this shirt off my back and cry. I swear to God, I did not plan that.